Hello everyone, it's Lily, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my top 3 otome games that I feel a little underrated, not really known, and I feel like a lot of people would actually appreciate. But anyway, let me start. Now, the otome game in third place is Varupuruga no Uta. Now, this game isn't like a solid game. It's just that it has a vampire, which is quite rare, I think. It has 2 werewolves, which obviously they're both adorable with different personalities. They're twins, and I just love it. And you have the older brother character, and they all are quite classic. So, you know, a lot of things that happen you kind of expect. But I had to include this because, you know, a lot of console games don't have that much like steaminess or spiciness in it, and a lot of people feel a little bit like it would be nice if there was a little bit more. Now this game it surprisingly pushes the limits, and it's probably one of the steamiest games I've played on console. One of the endings has like a video clip. It's really weird. Obviously it's not like explicit, but it's weird in a way where I'm like, is this even allowed? And so in that sense, it's quite rare. The story is simple and nothing like exciting necessarily, but it's good enough to keep you kind of interested, and you know, it's fun enough. And I don't know, I think you know, it's decent. I think people don't rate it as high as it should be, you know? So I definitely check it out. I don't think it's too expensive because it is a PS Vita game that, you know, isn't by Otome or Regit. So I think you could get a copy quite cheap. And yeah, I'd recommend it. It's got a vampire. It's about a girl who meets a vampire early on in her life. That vampire basically gets obsessed with her and kind of chases her around even in her secondary, like when she reaches high school. And it's fun watching a vampire want, you know, the main character so much, and then, you know, the twin werewolves have like moments of almost jealousy sometimes, which I love. And then the older brother, do I need to say more? So they're all great characters in a fantasy setting, and I do recommend it. Now, second place goes to Choucho Jiken love sodeィック. Now, this game is an interesting one. It's based in the Showa period. It's about this posh girl that moves into the city where, unfortunately, there are murders happening. And basically, these victims are found, you know, the dead bodies are found mangled, and the police and the army aren't really sure what the hell's going on, which in the prologue, you do really quickly discover it's these, like, basically things that are a bit crazy that attack humans. Think of like maybe a zombie. Like, I think this is the game that gets closest to a zombie apocalypse game, you know? And unfortunately, of course, the main character, being the main character, releases this scent that attracts these monsters, and so she ends up kind of getting involved. She sort of has to help resolve this situation, all whilst, you know, hanging out with the different love interests. Now, the charm of this game is 1, the beautiful art. Oh my god, I love it so much. But 2, and more so this, the love interests, some of them are unhinged in like a realistic way. So they're not unhinged like, let's say, Yang or, you know, the Diabolic Lovers boys, where it's very like blatantly obvious and extreme and out there. But the messed up characters in this one, they're like, yeah, they're real. One where you feel like you would potentially come across in real life, and that makes it all that more eerie, if that makes sense. And I just really enjoyed the kind of historical vibe that came from it. One of the love interests is also dressed as a female for part of the route, which I think is refreshing because you sort of see them together as a girl, like girls love almost, but then obviously when they, you know, stop dressing as a girl, you see them as like 2 different genders together. And I think it's just refreshing and nice. And one of the characters, oh my god, the way he looks is so pretty that it just took one look and I was like, I like that character. So as you can tell, I really enjoyed this game for their characters. I don't think it's that known despite it being a relatively solid game. Like, I actually got through all the, routes without any sort of problems of getting bored or anything like that. And as I said, there aren't many otome games that are sort of borderline zombie apocalypse. I can maybe think of like one or two that are kind of like that, but this one genuinely felt like that. So yeah, I highly recommend it to those who like angsty, like murder, oh my god, this is really creepy kind of otome game. Now, last and not least, obviously, because it's my first place otome game, is Suran Digit. Oh my god, the game that has my ultimate favorite love interest, Meguru-sama. If you know me or have been following me for a while, you know that I will not stop talking about this character whenever the question of what's your favorite love interest comes up. And but anyway, talking about the plot, Suran Digit is kind of an interesting mix of sort of high school and historical fiction almost. It's about, basically there are these 10 families who, for various reasons, end up coming to the conclusion of fighting in this sacred location in order to choose like the hierarchy. But the kind of criteria for the gates to this sacred place to open is for 10 family members suitable for a duel come together at the right moment. So it has to be like a right place and time sort of situation. Now, unfortunately, one of these 10 family members basically got completely eliminated, or so they thought. So for a very, very long time, because all 10 families did not gather in the same location, these sacred gates never opened, and there was no opportunity for the different families to kind of shuffle in the hierarchy. Now, of course, the main character, being special, happens to be the family of Zero, which is the family that they thought was eliminated. And yeah, so as a result of her transferring to this high school, which is where the sacred gates are, that causes all 10 family members, as in like, students from the 10 families, to come together and therefore end up opening this sacred gate. And it's really interesting because then as a result of that, all these sort of duels happen. And what, how it works is that a family from a lower class would challenge one of the higher families, and the higher family cannot say no. And so as a result of that, they are forced to go to the sacred location and have a katana duel. And it's so cool watching them duel, and it's really fun watching because normally the main character always just ends up winning in the end, and it's kind of like expected. It's like your stereotypical, what's going to happen, so there's no tension. That's not the case for this game. Main character loses, the main character wins, so you just don't know whether she's going to lose or win, and there's that tension. So when you're reading it, you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen? And I really like that. Not to mention the main character is so relatable, because I was not exactly a star student at high school. I was very average. I was a little bit lazy at times. I didn't like studying, and if I were part of a club activity, I would sometimes slack on it a little bit. So, and not to mention this main character, her hobby is napping. Like, how much can you relate to a character? So personally, she was perfect because she just shared all these traits that I shared back when I was in high school. And so, yeah, it was really relatable. And not to mention, she works hard when given in certain situations where she has to. But yeah, it was just nice. Also, it was interesting because all these different families had their own kind of beliefs. Like, there was one that really disagreed with fighting in general, so they absolutely refused to fight, and you had some that were just obsessed with being top, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. And through each of the routes, you do sort of learn a little bit about the history of each of those families and what happened. And yeah, I thought it was a really solid game, and I'm kind of surprised that it isn't well known, and I'm really sad because I want merch for it, but obviously I can't because it's just not known. And yeah, as you can tell, it's one of my favorites because of how I've probably spoken about this game longer than the other two. But anyway, I'll shut up now before I start boring you. So yeah, those were my top 3. Hopefully you learned of a game that you'd never heard of before. Unfortunately, these are all unlocalized, so only available in Japanese. But if you do play unlocalized games, then yeah, hopefully you know, pick one of these up. If you haven't heard of it, hopefully it's something new that you've learned. And yeah, as always case, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and hopefully I will see you in another one of my videos or streams. Bye!